So this is going to be section 2. We'll discuss the causes of the Crusades, then examine the numerous Crusades, and analyze the end of the Crusades. The Crusades are a long series of wars between Christians and Muslims in Southwest Asia. They fought over control of the Holy Land, specifically Palestine. The Holy Land is the region where Jesus lived, preached, and died. But the Holy Land is important to the three major religions: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And so because of that, this is the reason why the Crusades were fought. This is just a map. You can pause and kind of look at it if you want to about the different Crusades. For years, Palestine was under control of the Muslims, who took over most part of it until a group of Turkish Muslims took over and captured Jerusalem. This led to the Turks raiding the Byzantine Empire, where the Byzantine emperor sought out the Roman Catholic Church. Pope Urban II was the pope that agreed to help the Byzantines against the Muslims in the Crusades. Basically, what happens is that the Turks took over Jerusalem, and by doing so, they also came in and raided the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine emperor reached out to the Roman Catholic Church for help, and Pope Urban II agreed to help the Byzantines against the Muslims in the Crusades. Pope Urban II called for Christians from all over Europe to retake the Holy Land from the Muslims. They all flocked to France to prepare for war, sewing crosses on their clothing to show they fought for God, which is why the name Crusade means marked with a cross. As they marched off the war, it's reported that they cried out, "God wills it," making this a Christian versus a Muslim war, essentially. About 5,000 Crusaders left Europe for the Holy Land in 1096. The first troops were mostly untrained common people who attacked Jews on the way because they were blamed for killing Jesus and they were beaten badly by the Muslims. The first ones were just a ragtag bunch of citizen soldiers that basically went in with the intention of beating up on the Muslims, beating up on the Jews, and not really being trained. So they were pretty easy. The trained soldiers fared better than the common people, taking Jerusalem back after a month. So the trained soldiers come in, they take Jerusalem after a month. When the Europeans took over the Holy Land, they set up vassal systems like in Europe. But within 50 years, the Muslims started back taking land from the Christians. French and German kings in 1147 set up for the Second Crusade, but it was poorly planned and a disaster for the Christians, and within a year, they were back in Europe. The Third Crusade took place when the Muslims retook Jerusalem in 1189. The leaders of France, England, and the Roman Empire went to defend Jerusalem for the Christians, but when the German king died and the French king decided to leave, it left only Richard I of England. King Richard I was known as the Lionheart King. See here, Richard the Lionheart. This is based on the time period that Robin Hood is based. Here on Robin Hood, King Richard. That's what it's talking about. The main opposition to King Richard I was Saladin, the leader of the Muslim forces. Both Richard and Saladin were respected by their opposition, with Richard being respected for his bravery and Saladin being respected for being a brilliant leader and his respect for fallen enemies. The two sides fought for about a month, but both sides getting victories, but in the end the Muslims held Jerusalem. So Richard and Saladin fought back and forth. They both respected each other. They were both well-respected leaders, but in the end the Muslims held Jerusalem. The Fourth Crusade began when the French knights arrived at Venice to sail to the Holy Land, but couldn't afford the payment for the voyage. The Venetians told them the payment they could take over Zara, which is a rival trade center, which they did. Basically, if you take over Zara, then we will allow you transport. The French wound up also taking over and sacking Constantinople, stealing many treasures. The Christian city fell at the hands of Christians. Again, it was a disaster. Other crusades followed up, and none were successful, and in the end, the Muslims kept the Holy Land. Basically, a lot of people died, and things stayed about the same. The Crusades failed for a number of reasons, including the long distance the Crusaders had to travel, the harsh desert climate, and the Christians fought amongst themselves and were outnumbered. Through all the fighting for about 200 years, the result was the same as the beginning, the Muslims having control of the Holy Land. Although the Crusades failed, many of the outcomes would change Europe forever. So what happens is the crusade winds up failing because just poor planning. They really didn't do it the best way possible. Some of the changes that would come were Crusaders would bring Muslim ideas to Europe. They said, hey, these are pretty good ideas. Let's adopt them. Europeans learning about new products such as rice, cotton, and apricots, and trade growing between Asia and Europe. Politics also changed. Many kings gained lands since a number of kings died in the Crusades and led the remaining kingdoms and it allowed their kingdoms to grow. The Crusades had a lasting impact on relationships as well, with a growing distrust of Jews towards Christians, which obviously when they attack a bunch of Jews, they're going to have distrust, and a rift between the Byzantines and Western Christianity. The largest relationship issue was the Christians and the Muslims, with some Christians and Muslims learning in mutual respect as they grew more knowledgeable of others. In other cases, it led to tension in relationships between Christians and Muslims that some believe have had an impact even today. A lot of Christians and Muslims today still can't stand each other. And a lot of it has to do not the fact that they're different religions, but the fact of things that happened in the Crusades. This war that goes back and really has changed all of Europe and much of Asia, the Middle East, things like that as well, because of the Crusades. So we'll pick back up with section